Hey you! Over here! Do you want to hear a story about the book that ruined my life? This story begins in the far-off place of Ealing, West London, 1 year ago. I went into a quaint little bookshop called Waterstones. I was in there because I fancied a piece of historical fiction, and I found a book that sounded like it would give me everything I wanted. It was called Daughters of the Night, a gritty historical crime thriller. Perfect. And then I saw that the author had another book called Blood and Sugar. Both of these sounded fantastic. And in my infinite idiocy, I just went, no, I'm alright actually. And I ignored them. And I thought about them all the time. But I never went out and got them. I never talked about them. I never asked people if they were any good. I never looked at any reviews. I didn't do anything about it. Just ignored them. Then, a few months ago, I go into this quaint little bookshop again, and I see on the table of hardback new releases, this, The Square of Sevens. It looks tantalizing. I see the name of the author, I think that looks familiar. I look in the back, and I see that she wrote Daughters of the Night and Blood and Sugar, and I think, now's the time. I'm finally going to read her. I'm going to read her newest book, this big, beautiful hardback with pretty sprayed edges, a book that's about cartomancy, fortune-telling, an historical drama set in Bath and London, two of my favourite cities. Now's the time. And do you know what I did? I put it on a shelf. Then I started a new series of videos called This is what I'm gonna read this month probably, or something like that. I mentioned this book in that first video and how excited I am that I'm finally going to read it. And then I don't read it because it's just a bit too long and I've got a lot to read, I've got a lot to do, I'm a busy girl. So that month goes by and this thing sits on the top of my TBR, just taunting me, being a little bit too big, telling me it would take just a little bit too much time. Next month comes along and this bloody book ends up in that video again, second time. I promise this month I'm going to read this thing, and then I don't. At the start of that month, I move out of London. I move up to Scotland. I'm in this gothic setting, this rainy, dark, Halloween setting, and I'm in the mood for some historical fiction. So I read one historical novel that's not this. The month goes by and I don't read it until the very end. I finally pick this up and I think I've got enough videos coming out soon that I can finally read this thing. So I started it. I started it right before bed and it was really captivating. I read the first chapter or two, went to sleep, woke up the next day and remembered, oh shit, I've got to drive across the border back to England to go get a new tattoo and then stay that night with a friend of mine who's just moved to the area where I'm getting the tattoo. Brilliant, all worked out great. Carried this big heavy thing in my bag, excited to read it, and at no point do I read it. Instead, I get the tattoo, I get drunk, and I fall asleep. And I've barely read a word. I get back home, and then I fall into a little pit of depression because my website is dying. Thanks to a Google update. And I'm steadily losing all of my income. And I'm trying to read and enjoy this book and I'm struggling. But it is good. I am enjoying it. I'm thinking about work, I'm thinking about money, I'm stressed about everything, but the book is good. It's rewarding, it's taking me way longer than any book ever should, but I am enjoying it. And then I get to the halfway point, and the book just fucking dies on its feet. It gets really, really boring, really, really quickly. Part 1, travelling girl, dad dies, moves to Bath, exciting. She starts to learn about her history, who her mother might have been, the mystery of their elopement, the mystery of this pseudo-magical thing that she can do where she predicts the future, all too accurately using cartomancy. Oh, it's brilliant. Part 2, she goes to London. She's on the run. People are after her. She joins a group of street performers who do things like fortune-telling and stuff, and she becomes part of this group. These people knew her dad. Oh, it's thrilling. She starts to get to know the family that she thinks might be connected to her mother, a mother she never knew. Oh, I can't wait. Part 2 ends. We're at the halfway point. She moves setting, and then nothing happens ever again. I got so bored, and I was so upset, and I was so depressed, and everything bad was happening, and I got to thinking that this book was cursed and that it had just ruined my life. I'm not in a very good way right now. And I think it's this book's fault. I think this book is cursed and it's ruined my life. Alright, all jokes aside, The Square of Sevens by Laura Shepard Robinson is probably really great. It's just such a great example of the wrong book hitting you at the wrong time. And we've all had this, and not just with books, but with films and TV shows, music, that's a big one. Things that come along at the wrong time, and because your life isn't going very well at the moment, you try and watch that film or listen to that album or read that book, and it's forever tainted, and it gets inextricably tied up with the stuff in your life that's going wrong, and you cannot escape that connection that you've built between the thing that you should enjoy and the life you're currently living that's not going so well. And this thing that we call escapism is suddenly not escapism because you've dragged that form of escapism into the real world, into your life, and now it's a part of it. And it really starts to feel like a curse. I really feel like I was cursed by this thing. And of course that's not true. This is just an example of how we can ruin the things that we should be able to enjoy. If I had read this book 2 months ago, 3 months ago, like I should have, I would have enjoyed it, I would have loved it. As it is, as my life is going right now, I put this book down just a little over halfway through, maybe 60% through, when I got bored of the fact that it suddenly fell apart. There was a slump, the pacing dragged to a halt, and I'm sure it's all building towards something. I usually have patience for this kind of thing. The book is too long, it's 550 pages, and I do feel like, based on the more than half of it that I read, it could have been a lot shorter. Every page could have had a little bit taken out of it. There's a little bit too much slow burn pacing going on, and that's the author's choice. Great, she's good at building suspense and mystery and intrigue, but it definitely could have been shorter. So I can still do my critic job and say this book's too long. But I am just talking about how it can be so hard sometimes to separate your life as it's going right now from the things that you should be able to enjoy that exist outside of your life. This author doesn't know me, the book doesn't know me, but I can't help but tie myself to it, and I don't like it as a result. And that's not the book's fault. I'm very aware of that, and so are you. The Square of Sevens is a very enticing piece of historical mystery drama, and it has a lot of elements that I love. The settings of Bath and London are captivating, the people are dramatic and almost camp, and I love that. The fact that it's about fortune telling and cartomancy is really exciting. I love that stuff. I love tarot cards. The author has taken a lot of time and energy to build a very exciting world and a wonderfully long and twisted tale about a young girl who travels the roads with her father and they face prejudice until her father one day dies and she's taken in by this rich guy who raises her for almost 10 years in comfort in Bath, but she wants to know about who her father really was. The dad that she never really knew, and the mother she never knew at all, who might end up being a wealthy person who lives in London, and that takes her to London, and she gets lost in this enormous place. She gets to befriend a group of working class travelling performers and a family of rich toffs. And she's in both of those disparate worlds, and it's all really exciting, and there's a huge mystery, and there is twist upon twist upon twist, so many twists. And it's all really exciting. And then as soon as the plot ground to a halt for a little while, I lost my shit and I went, no, can't handle this right now, cannot deal with the length of this book and the pacing of this book because my life is not going brilliantly. And so I kind of ruined that for myself. And so I feel kind of cursed. But I'm sure this book is absolutely amazing. I'm going to recommend it to you because that's my job as a critic, and everything I read up until a certain point was really, really good, and I think you should check it out. If you like historical fiction, if you like thrillers and mystery stories, it's all in there. I do think it's way, way too long, and it does feel particularly slow. It feels even longer than it is. Like, I've read 1,000-page long books that didn't feel as slow and sluggish as this. Sluggish isn't a word. Anyway, I'm having a bad time. I really wanted to like it, and I can't tell at this point if it's the book's fault or mine. There you go. That's the story of the book that ruined my life. As I said, things are not going brilliantly, and that's because there was a massive Google update. These updates happen constantly. Google does an update of its algorithm at least once a year, twice. They've done 3 this year. The first one didn't hit us. The second one didn't affect us. The third one has destroyed my website, my primary form of income. We've lost more than half of our traffic, half of our revenue, and I'm really frightened. So, if you want to support me on Patreon, I would really, really, really appreciate that now more than ever. I love Books and Bao. It is my job, it is my life, it is my everything. I have worked on this site for nearly 5 years. It is a fantastic resource for diverse literature, translated books from all around the world, queer fiction, feminist fiction. It's a beautiful thing, and I'm so proud of it. But Google in October decided none of that matters, and they've buried all of our articles for absolutely no reason. They updated their algorithm, and the algorithm said, we are no longer worthy. And I'm scared. And if you want to show your support, if you've enjoyed anything I've ever done and you think I deserve a few bucks, please send them my way. You can support me on patreon.com/booksandbow. I hope you enjoyed this rambling and weird video. If you did, you can support me on Patreon and subscribe for books.